So today's lesson is all about the nervous system, okay? So the nervous system is a crazy complex system that we could probably spend months or years studying. Okay, so this is going to be basically an overview of the main parts, what they do, kind of how it all works together, okay? So if we look here, you can basically get the idea of some of the main parts already. The nervous system is pretty much all about your brain and how you think, interpret, move, decide what to do with basically everything in your life. So the first thing I guess we'll start with is what are the three main parts, okay? So the main part, I would say the number one main part is your brain, okay? Which has lots of different parts within it itself. There's also our spinal cord, okay? Which runs right down our spine, protected by our vertebrae. Technically that's called the central nervous system. And then we have our nerves, okay? Our peripheral nerves that are out in our body and basically everywhere. So here are our three main parts, okay? And they all have a different job. So the first thing I want you to know is that I'm going to be using the word nerve cell sometimes, I'll be using the word neuron sometimes. They're interchangeable. So as you can kind of see here, the neurons are your nerve cells, and they're shaped beautifully with these kind of like little like finger-like structures because their main job that you're going to see is to basically pick up messages and send messages. So very much like telephone lines up on a telephone pole are designed to send messages. That's exactly why they are shaped the way that they are. All right. So there's lots of parts, even within a neuron. So I want you guys to make sure that you can look at this and at the very least know the dendrites, the axon, the cell body, and the nucleus. So you can see here from this picture, it's basically how it's labeled here. And there's some other parts here that we haven't really talked about. But just so you kind of get the idea of how it all works, the dendrites, they're what take in the information, okay? And then the information will go through here and then out the axon. And then the way I always remembered it as a kid is I always thought of like dendrites like dental, almost like your mouth, and that's where food goes in, and that's where the information goes in. And then I actually thought of axon and anus, and where food exits, and also where the information exits as well. So that's the path that goes in. It comes in here, shoots down here, and then ultimately you'll see connects to a different dendrite, and then it's a process over and over and over again. But here's the basic structure of what a neuron looks like. All right, to me, way more important than like a dendrite and an axon and all those fancy words is how they actually work. How, right now, am I talking to you? How can you kick a soccer ball? How do you decide when you should turn left, turn right? Every decision you make has to do with your neurons. So there's a process to it. So I found this little clip here, hopefully you can pick it up, of this goalie who's basically saving this goal, and it's a pretty phenomenal save. So by all means take a look at it, but I'm using this to ultimately teach you about the three main things that neurons do. So if you're this goalie here, I'm going to talk you through, he has three main things he's got to do in order to save this goal. The first thing he's got to do, we'll start it right about now, okay, is he has to realize there is a ball rolling that way, or there's a white object rolling that way. So that's the first thing. He just basically has to be able to see what's happening, okay? So that's like your senses. And then after he sees a ball rolling this way and he sees a couple figures shooting that way, the second thing he's got to do is figure out what all these things actually mean. So we don't even think about it, but what he has to do then is be like, oh, that white thing's a soccer ball, and it's heading towards the goal, and that guy's not my team, and he's shooting the ball towards the goal. I need to go save it. So he has to basically interpret everything he's seeing around him. And then the last thing he's going to do is once he interprets it, he has to say, all right, there's a white thing going there. Oh my goodness, that's someone trying to score a goal. And then he has to tell his leg muscles and his arm muscles to run and try to save the goal. And he has to actually literally make his arms swing and try to grab it. He has to make his legs move. So he has to do all these steps, and it happens so quickly. And that's what's so incredible about our nervous system is that we don't realize how quickly it does all these things. So he sees something, decides what to do with it, and ultimately makes his legs move all within seconds. And this is what we do every single day, every moment of every day. So let me break that down for you, okay? So let's make a simpler example. If you're looking at a glass of water, the first thing you do is you see a glass of water, or you feel a glass of water, but you just basically sense it, okay? And you hopefully at this point have learned your five senses, your taste and your touch and your sight. So you sense the glass, and then your mind has to say, oh, that's a glass. Ooh, that's full of water. Oh, I'm kind of thirsty. I think I'm going to pick it up. So you do all this stuff basically interpreting what to do, and then you tell your arm muscle, grab, arm muscle, pick it up. Okay, so your nerves literally send an electrical signal to your muscles which make them contract and pull and grab, okay? So you see things, you interpret what to do with it, and then you ultimately motor output. Motor means movement. You decide to actually move and pick up this glass, okay? So because there's three main things that you have to do, there's a different type of neuron for each one. So the first one that we're going to talk about is that sensory neuron. Again, it's your senses. Okay, it lets you see and touch and feel. So there's these neurons in this little picture here. They're attached to your skin, again, so you can touch it in the back of your eyeballs, so you can see things. Okay, there's two main things I want you to know about them. The first is that their main job is to sense your environment. Like I said, smell something, see something, taste something. Okay, that without these neurons, you couldn't see anything or smell anything or taste anything or touch or feel anything when you touched it. Okay. And the second main thing I want you to know is their job is to take the signals that you get from your environment and ultimately send it to your brain or to your spinal cord, okay? Because either of those are going to basically interpret it. So their job is to sense it and then ultimately send it to somewhere to be interpreted of what to do with this information. All right, the second one we're talking about is called the Inter Neurons, okay? And their job, okay, they exist in your brain. Okay, they exist in your spinal cord, and they are probably what most people think of when you think of nervous system. Their job is to interpret these signals and what to do with it. You smell something and you say, "Ooh, that's a cookie. I would really like a cookie," or "I shouldn't have a cookie." But this is the interneurons in your brain basically going all over the place trying to figure out what to do with everything you just sensed. Okay, and like I said, they exist in your brain mostly, but there's a bunch that also exist in your spinal cord, and I'll tell you in a little bit why that's so important. And the third thing to know is they're the connectors. You'll see in a little bit. The connectors between the sensory neurons and the last neuron we're going to talk about in a second is the motor neurons. So they're the in-between of sensing it, deciding what to do, and then ultimately telling your motor neurons to move. All right, so like I said, motor neurons. So your motor neurons, you can see here, are connected to your muscle fibers. Okay, and remember, motor means move. So they literally send a signal, like I said, which makes your muscles move and bend and pull your bones. Okay, so two things I want you guys to know about them is that their job is to carry the signals from your brain or your spinal cord to your muscles. That's their job. Once you figure out what you want to do with that cookie or glass of water, it tells your muscles what to do. Okay? And like I said, the second thing is its main job is to tell your muscles to move. Okay? So it carries signals from your brain this way to your body. Okay? Whereas sensory neurons brought it into your spinal cord, your motor neurons are going this way. They're heading out towards your muscles. So it's an opposite direction of the sensory neurons. All right, so let's pull it all together here, okay? This is basically how I said they all connect here. So you'd sense something in your skin, you tell your interneurons, hey, what should we do with that information? And then ultimately they tell your motor neurons to move or so on and so forth. So this is the loop, basically, of how your neurons work together so quickly. And it sounds complicated, and it is, but it happens so quickly on a daily basis, okay? Every decision that you make. Now, there's something called reflexes. And it still uses the same 3 steps, but it's a little different than, let's just say, somebody saying, hey, turn left, and you have to say, I heard turn left, that means turn left, make my body turn left. What's different about a reflex is that you don't even think about it, okay? It doesn't even go to your brain, okay? Because we've evolved to basically, when something happens that usually is endangering our safety, it has to happen so fast that you have evolved to not even think about it. So the example I had was a guy, and a baseball was coming at him, so if someone throws something at you without even thinking about it, you're probably going to duck. Because 99% of the time, that's a good move for your safety is to duck. Or that terrible picture of that person with something in their eye too. Like 99% of the time, something in your eye is not good for you, so your body's evolved to blink. So what happens is this, okay? Basically, the two things you should know is that it's your body responding to a stimulus, which is something in your environment. Again, something poking you, a bright light, which makes you blink, without ever even thinking about it. So it's really hard sometimes to override your reflexes. It's just something you can't help, okay? And what's different about it is that instead of going from like your sensory neurons up to your brain to think about it and then back to your motor neurons, what it does is it goes from your sensory neurons and just goes to your spinal cord because you have some interneurons in there, and those interneurons say, okay, something's poking us, something's sharp, something's hot, move, and it sends it right away. And the reason that we evolved to do that is because by going here, instead of up to your brain, it's actually a shorter path. So therefore, it can react quicker. So like I said, in life and death moments out there, it's really important that you were able to react that half a second faster, because that's maybe all it took to when you got to the edge of a cliff and all of a sudden you had to stop, right? Or something was being thrown at you. So it's a phenomenal tool that we've kind of evolved to manage, is to have it really, really quick. So that's a pretty good overview of the main ideas of your nervous system. So let's just recap here, okay? If I'm you, I'd pause this, close your notebook, and see how many of these can you actually answer right now, okay? But I'll go through them all with you, just short and sweet here, okay? The 3 main parts of your nervous system are your brain, your spinal cord, and your nerves. Okay, another name for your nerve cell is a neuron. Okay, those main parts I showed you from the picture is the dendrites where the information goes in. You have your cell body, and the axon where the information leaves. And you also have your nucleus, which we know is the brain of the cell. Okay, for your sensory neurons, their job is to bring the information in to your spinal cord. Okay, it's also their job is to sense the outside environment. Your interneurons, they connect the two main types of neurons. Okay, they exist in your brain and your spinal cord, and their job is to interpret what's going on in our outside world. And our motor neurons, they connect to their muscles, and they also bring the information out this way. Okay, back out this way. We talked about how they all work together. You sense something, interpret it, and then ultimately move. And then a reflex is the same idea, only instead of going to your brain, it happens right in your spinal cord, and it's without even thinking about it. All right, so this is our overview, and as always, if you have any questions, please ask me. Thanks for watching.